What is up, YouTube? It's Blake Leapart again with Lean Six Sigma for Blake, Lean Six Sigma with Blake, and rather not for Blake. This is episode number 4, and in this episode we are going to talk about the Lean Six Sigma tool called a SIPOC, which is an acronym for Supplier, Input, Process, Output, and Customer, or SIPOC. But before we get into that, I know in my introductory episode I had talked about posting a video once a week on different Lean Six Sigma topics and continuous improvement topics and things like that. That was obviously an ambitious goal. I have a lot going on with work and board of directors that I serve on, and so I know it's been probably a little over a month, maybe even closer to 2 months since I've posted a video. So hopefully my revised goal is to try to get a new video at least once a month in. There'll probably be more than one video each month, but my goal is a bare minimum of at least once a month. So just wanted to, for those that have been watching or waiting for new content, I've just been pretty busy of late, and so just wanted to put that out there. But today's video, like I said, is all about a SIPOC. And the SIPOC tool is used mainly on the lean side of things rather than the Six Sigma side. And what the SIPOC does is it is intended for Kaizen teams or improvement teams to sort of frame or understand at a very high level what their process is that they're currently looking at to improve. So essentially what this tool does is it takes sort of an aerial view of your process at a very high level. So you're not getting into the details here with this tool. For instance, you're not getting into the specific detailed steps of a current state process or whatever process you're looking to improve upon. What you're doing with this tool is looking at the major milestones that occur in your process as it currently operates. So that way you can understand and what the details are when you go to map them out in a value stream map. So this tool is sort of a precursor to doing a value stream map or a process map. Like I said, it's used to frame those high-level steps or milestones, as I like to call them, in your process. The other purpose of this tool is to allow folks to understand who needs to be involved in the process improvement for this particular process that you're looking to analyze. And what I mean by that is, and you'll see in just a moment, on this chart, there's 2 columns. There's a supplier column and then a customer column, the far left and far right columns of the chart. And basically, you're putting in who the suppliers are to each major milestone and who are the major customers or beneficiaries of each of these major milestone steps. And if you start to see, a repeat person or a repeat group or a repeat system on each column, then you know that they're a major player in your current process, and they probably need some representation on your improvement team or Kaizen team that you're looking at. So that's the 2 purposes of this tool, and I'm going to actually walk you through an example here. This is one that I kind of put together myself. I use it when I work with Kaizen teams at my work as an example and whatnot. But what you're looking at here is an example of a SIPOC tool. And I use it for building a deck on my house. So that's the example we're going to run through today. So at the top, you have your title, Building a Deck. And then you can kind of see how the chart is laid out. You've got your suppliers on your far left, then the next column in is your inputs, then in the middle is your process, major milestone steps or your process steps, and then it's your output, and then on the far right is your customer column. So what you want to do is, once you have your title up at the top, in the first block, you want to put what your trigger is. And by trigger, we mean what's the first step in the process that you're looking at that kicks off the process. So in our example, it's, I have an idea to build a deck. That's the trigger. And then you want to come all the way to the bottom and put in your last step that you're looking at in your process. So in this case, the deck is built and being used. That's your done. That's your last step in the process. So you want to have your trigger and done identified. And I get the question a lot of times, well, how do you know how far down to put your done? How many rows do you go? Well, just go a couple rows down, put it down there, and then if you need to add, delete rows, I do this in Excel so you can easily insert and delete rows, etc. But a good rule of thumb for a SIPOC is you don't want more than 5 to 7 of these major milestone steps that are shown here in the yellow. So 5 to 7, so you can put your done statement probably in the 8th or 9th step down. And then if you don't use some in the middle, you can delete those. But essentially what you want to do is sort of fill this chart out from the inside out. And what I mean by that is once you have your trigger and done, which are shown in the purple, you want to come back and put in what your major milestone steps are in the yellow. And again, you're not doing this in a vacuum. You're actually working with your Kaizen team to do this. So in our example for building a deck, the first step or major milestone is conceptualize it. And by it, we mean the deck. So obviously when you build a deck, you're going to conceptualize what you want to do. That's the first major milestone. Then you drop down, and what's the next major milestone? You're going to procure what you need for the deck. Then you're going to build it, and then you're going to evaluate it, and then you hit your done statement. So as you can see here, these are just, 4 major milestone, very high-level steps. There's a lot of mini steps or a lot of detailed steps that occur in this process of building a deck, but you don't want to show that in this tool. Like I said, this is a high-level overview of your current process. You show the details on your value stream map, which will be another episode. But for this, you want the high-level steps. So once you have this middle column or your process column filled out, then you go to your left. So you go to your inputs. So what major high-level inputs do you need in order to run this process? Now, I want to pause here just for a second because as you can see at the top where your trigger is, you have output and customers there. Some processes will have outputs to their trigger and customers to their trigger, some will not. So in this case, for example purposes, I put 2 in just to show you everything. So in this case, you wouldn't start with the input column like you normally would. You would actually start with the output customer column if you have it on your trigger. So in this case, what comes out of your trigger of an idea to build a deck? Well, suggestions on what you want to do and a drawing, maybe a blueprint, so to speak. That's your output at a high level. Again, you're not looking to list 10, 15 things here. You're wanting the major outputs of that process milestone. And then who benefits from those outputs or who receives those outputs is your customer. Well, the homeowner, obviously, and then the builder. The builder would need to receive the drawing and the suggestions, and the homeowner would benefit from these as well because it's their deck, right? So once you have that, then you can drop down to the next step of conceptualize it and figure out, okay, what are my inputs here? What do I need in order to successfully run this milestone step of conceptualizing it? Well, you need a drawing, obviously, in order to conceptualize it. You need a design, and you need suggestions. Now, if you look at these inputs, they're similar to the outputs of your trigger, right? Suggestions and drawing also show up down here. This is a good rule of thumb. If your Kaizen team gets stuck in filling a SIPOC out, you can always go to the outputs of the previous row, and usually those are the inputs of the next milestone down, in this case, to conceptualize it. Not always, and there may be a time when there'll be additional ones. In this case, design is an additional input here, but it's a good starting point. So you need the drawing and the design and the suggestions in order to conceptualize it. And then who are the major suppliers of these inputs? So who would supply the drawing? Well, probably maybe the homeowner would if they're good at it, or the builder. So, who would show the design or supply the design? Well, homeowner or builder could do that as well. And then suggestions. Well, the homeowner and builder could do that as well. So those are your major suppliers of those inputs. Now you come to the right-hand side. What are your major outputs of conceptualization of the deck? Well, you want a finalized drawing, obviously, that's a major output, and then you would want a blueprint if you're the builder. So those are the major outputs of conceptualizing it. And then who do those go to, or who are the beneficiaries of those? Well, the homeowner and the builder are. So you kind of do that all the way down. So then you go to the procure step. What do you need? You need a material list and specifications. Who supplies the material list? Well, probably the builder does. Who supplies the specifications? Well, probably the builder, maybe the homeowner a little bit. It just depends on how savvy the homeowner is. And obviously the homeowner would be procuring the material or paying the builder to do it. So that's why they're the supplier here. Then on the output side, what do you need? Well, or what is the major output of the procure step? Well, the necessary materials to build the deck are bought. Who are the beneficiaries here? Well, the homeowner, the builder, and a home improvement store, because you obviously gave them money to buy the materials. Then you drop down to the build it. What do you need in order to build the deck? Well, you need the materials purchased and you need tools. Who supplies those things? Well, the home improvement store gave you the materials and the builder supplies the tools. Then on the output side, what comes out of the build it step? A final deck. And then who's the major beneficiary there? Well, the homeowner is. Then you drop down to evaluate it phase. What do you need in order to evaluate the deck? You need the final deck that was built to look at it, and you need the blueprint. Who supplies those things? Well, the builder does. And then on the output side, what do you get out of the evaluate step? An approved build. And then who are the customers there? Well, the homeowner, because they've got an approved deck that they wanted, and the builder, because now they've been paid for their services. And then you drop down to the done statement. Again, just like with the trigger, some processes have inputs and suppliers to the done. Some Kaizen teams choose not to do that. In this case, I just showed it to show you everything. So in this case, the input is the final deck and the approval, and then who supplies that? The homeowner, and then you're done. The final deck is built and used. So that's how this tool works. And again, the major thing you want to get out of this with your Kaizen team is what are the major steps here and who are the major players? Because oftentimes we find in Kaizen events, when you look at this SIPOC, there may be some folks that you identify in the supplier and customer columns that you originally didn't think to have on your Kaizen team. And now this gives you an opportunity, if you do this far in advance of your Kaizen team actually running through the value stream mapping and whatnot. This actually gives them a chance now to be invited, be filled in on what you're doing, etc. That's why I also recommend that this get filled out at least a week or so. In my company, we try to do it 4 to 6 weeks in advance of the actual Kaizen event with the team. But every company's different. But I at least recommend you giving yourself some time to fill this SIPOC out prior to your Kaizen team meeting to do the value stream mapping. That way you have time to think about the milestone steps, think about if you missed anything, and also make sure you have the right people on the team. Because in this example, homeowner and builder show up quite a bit in here. So you would want to make sure that you have representation from the homeowner. If this was a process you were looking to improve upon, you would want to make sure you have the homeowner and a builder representative on your Kaizen team throughout the improvement process. Now also on here, I'll point out that home improvement store comes up I think once or twice in here. It's important to note that if you have a entity, a supplier or customer that only shows up a little bit in your SIPOC, they may not be somebody that you invite full-time on your Kaizen team, but somebody you bring in at strategic times to talk about their steps or whatnot. Again, it's company dependent. Some people would want them there the full time, some companies would not. But I recommend that if you've got a pretty full Kaizen team of 10 to 12 folks, and they're consisting of the major players that show up on almost every SIPOC step, then maybe you only bring those supplier and customer representatives that show up once in a while in on strategic times to talk about certain things, and then that's it. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is it doesn't always have to be a function, department, or person that shows up in the supplier or customer. Because what if you're looking at improving an automated process? Well, a system may provide be a supplier, or they may be a customer. So your enterprise resource system that your company uses could be a supplier of information. They could be the recipient of information internally within the coding. So it's okay to list a system as the supplier and customer. How does that translate into a role on your Kaizen team? Well, what you would want to do is get somebody from IT or somebody that works with that enterprise resource system to be on your team that knows it in and out. That way they can help you with that particular milestone improvement and whatnot. So think about that. If a system shows up as a supplier or customer, get somebody that codes that system, get somebody that runs that particular part of the system to be on your Kaizen team. That way they can help you understand what the system's doing and information in it. That's pretty much it with this tool. It's a very simple tool. Like I said, my company, we try to do it in advance of the improvement event. And, it's to be done with your Kaizen improvement team because they need to be involved in it, because it sort of frames your value. It frames your value stream mapping and the details that go into that, which will probably be the next episode. So this tool is very valuable to use, and it's also used to see who needs to be there. So other than that, that is about it on this tool. Like I said, it's very simple, very easy to do. It's done in Excel here, so you can kind of see the framework for it. 5 to 7 major process steps in the middle. When you start to get more than that, then they probably can be collapsed, because if you start to see the inputs and outputs read the same as the next milestone step down in the rows, then you're too much in the weeds and you need to bring it up a level and collapse it. So just be considerate of that. With that, that's it for episode 4 of Lean Six Sigma Talk with Blake, and I hope to see you the next time I shoot episode 5, which will probably be on value stream mapping. All right, thank you. Have a good night.